Hey, it's good to be back again. Well, today we're picking up from where we left up yesterday, and it's still all about Minister Directory security. And what we're doing today is Kerberos authentication security. Again, this is not going to be like deep stuff. It's just some quick checks you can get done with to be sure you have a bit of security around your Kerberos authentication in your Active Directory environment. So what we'll be covering today, again, Kerberos settings, which will improve Active Directory authentication security. We will be using some PowerShell script to detect Kerberos configuration anomalies, then also configuring alternative computer names as a way to better improve on security for Kerberos, then also enabling IP service principal name, that's the SPNs. Then we'll be deploying additional Kerberos hardening. Again, this is us trying to make it harder, complex for the bad guys. This is no bulletproof solution because one way or the other, they they're going to have to get in. So just make it a bit harder, complex. So the more they try to want to caress and get in, they make more noise. You can actually catch those on your CM. You should have one actually, so you can quickly see those events transformed into alerts or notifications. Then you can respond to them based on your internal policy or how you choose to run your sim. Okay, enough with the chitty chatting. We will continue from where we stopped yesterday, and I'm going to have to put a couple of things down so we can maximize the time. I think we stopped here yesterday. I will clear this screen and no. Let's clear the screen. Okay, great. So we can work off here, I believe. All right, I'm going to start another PowerShell, and I will run this as administrator. I want to use an elevated PowerShell for this. So what we'll be doing first is to run some checks. So we want to detect Kerberos configuration anomalies, and these anomalies usually would help us understand. Again, this is my domain controller one. Help us understand from a security standpoint what had been done wrong. So the first thing we would look into would be to see what the condition is, disable Kerberos authentication for a user. Let's assume we want to disable Kerberos authentication. I think if I do net users, we should see we've got Frank, Charlie admin. I'm going to pick up Frank as my target user, and I will attempt to disable Kerberos pre-authentication for user Frank using this is my command. Okay, I'm just going to copy this PowerShell command. I will leave all these PowerShell commands in the description, the video description. So that way it's easy for you to just follow it. Okay, copy this and paste this here. Great. So what we're doing is we just disabled Kerberos pre-authentication for the user Frank. Now we're going to search for users with pre-authentication disabled using another command. So we would see Frank had it disabled. Again, we had to disable it so we can just show what that looks like. If you're searching maybe on your own domain controller, you're running this search, how would you know? I can see the user Frank Fisher has pre-authentication disabled. It still belongs to the domain, but Kerberos pre-authentication is disabled for the user because we had done that here by using the replace flag for the account user. We set the flag. Again, this is the flag to disable it. Now we just done the verification does not require pre-auths. We see it's true. Okay, what else can we do? We can also search for users with pre-authentication disabled, which we just did, sorry. We can also simulate maybe like an SQL server running under the identity of a personalized user account by adding maybe an SPN to a user account. What we're going to do next, we have a server. We will start our server, which is this server 01. Then we will attach more. An SQL server is actually an SQL MSQL is running on that server. So what we're basically going to be doing is we'll be searching more or less like looking for identity of a personalized user account, attaching this SPN to a user account. Then we can now query for it to see if we can see that SPN on that user account. Let's get that done. With first we will start our server. Okay, then we will authenticate into our server. I'm just going to pause this. Okay, so we have our server running, and you can see, like I did mention, we have SQL going on here. So what we would do now is we would simulate the SQL server running on that, the identity of a personalized user account by adding that particular SPN to the user David. We're going to use this command here. So you would see in the command, I have specified the identity David, then the SPN that I'm adding is the MySQL SVC PC01. So let's get that done with. I'm going to paste this here. Just going to copy that again. I really need to get a mouse for my MacBook. My magic mouse is just okay. I'm just going to copy this. Okay, so finally I was able to copy this. Would run this. All right, so I have set the AD user with identity David, the SPN, MySQL, PC01. So now that we have this simulation done, we will search for user accounts for which Kerberos service tickets can be issued, just so we would see if we can actually verify that. Again, I'm going to just copy that command here. Again, you would see the command will get an AD user, filter for service principal like personal asterisk there. And the goal here, Kerberos service ticket can be issued. Again, if this SPN is bonded to this server, we should be able to see that pop up. Let's verify that with this command. I hope the copy works this time. Okay. All right. Seems like it's working. And there you go. We can see the user David has the true flag set, and we can as well see that it is bonded to this MySQL server. Again, that's could be a bit concerning. Now that we've been able to verify this, what else can we do? We can search for an account with Kerberos on constrained delegation enabled, and again, that could be kind of like a concern. Ideally, you should only see the domain controller in that class, but anything else that comes in that class, definitely it's something that you might want to look into. And for the unconstrained flag, we're using the 0x8 80,000. I think it's 0x80,000. We have it right here, so I'm just going to copy this. Oh, my bad. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with my copy and paste today. It's just acting like it's got its own brain. Copy, paste. Okay, so we just searched, and again we can see the DC01, DC02. These are the domain controllers. So that should be what we want to see on constraint delegation. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the DSA MSC. Let's go browse through. Let's browse through Active Directory, see if we can enable constraint delegation from the server. This is our server here, which has our SQL, to maybe the domain controller. And in the domain controller, right here under users, we can see the users we have. We've got all these users in there. So let's try to see if we can actually enable constraint delegation from the server to the domain controller using authentication protocol in that context. Okay, so let's assume we want to configure this or want to enable this constraint delegation from, like I mentioned, from server one. If we go into our servers here, we would see we've got server 01, which is the server we started, to like a CIFS on the domain controller. CFS being a normal network protocol that allows clients to communicate with servers and access more like file sharing, printer services that were stored on that remote server as though they are stored locally. We want to be able to browse, shares, and also printer services. Assuming that it's remote, but we want to have that accessibility as though it's local. We'll be using the CIS. So what we're going to do basically is I'll just open properties on these, go to delegation. So that delegation, I can actually add a trust and I would use authentication protocol. I'm going to add, let's find for the DC01. Okay, that name seems to be there. Now we see the CIFS here. So that's the goal. We want to pick this one. And I think it's just going to be that one only on this domain controller. So we're going to select that one and we can see it's added here. So the scope, what we're trying to do now is we want to assess files and shares of print service on the server 01 from the DC as though those are local on the DC. So once we have that added, we verify that it looks good, we can actually apply this change and okay on this. We've just made that change here. So one quick way to verify, we can search for account with Kerberos constraint delegation enabled using the PowerShell, and the PowerShell command will be filtering for specificity. So we see this PowerShell here. The systems are slowing down a bit. Okay, let's see. Constraint delegation from server 1 to this will be this. I'm just going to copy this. Hopefully my copy works fine this time around. Then I'm going to paste this here. Okay. That didn't return nothing yet. Probably I need to run GPU updates. I don't have to do that though. But just wait a while and see how fast that's going to get done. Then we can run that scan again or the search again. Okay, so we just refine that command a little bit, and you can see it right here. I'm getting AD object with MSDS allowed to delegate to, and I'm putting the wildcat asterisk there. And then also we are actually passing properties some accounts MSDS allowed delegate to, then also selecting these properties. And we can see that this appears, which is the server. Remember, we just configured this. You can also see the service there, CIFS, and this is actually configured to the domain. So we've got all these services available. Now that we can verify this, how about we search for account where like a cross protocol delegation is enabled, and also web application proxies would typically appear in an output like this. So we want to see if we have any of such accounts. We can basically use a straightforward command. I think it's going to be get AD objects, and I think we can filter for I'm going to pass that here, user account control. I hope that's spelled correct. Then we'll pass the ball. Okay, that's XO. Then would 0, I think that's 0 x1 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, we close this up. Great. So we can see the server appeared. Now, what does this tells us? It means we don't just have the delegation here. We can also see that we're searching for components where cross protocol delegation is enabled. And because we've enabled the print service or the file share service accessibility, we can as well see server 01 popping up here and then letting us know that we have an object grid which is set as this value, and is also a computer in terms of the object class. So one more thing we can do is we can configure resource-based constraint delegation. That's the arrow back or arrow BCD from the server 1 to the domain controller. Now we're configuring resource-based. In this context, we want to be sure we're specific what we want to delegate. So it's going to be more like setting the AD computer, then with the identity of the domain controller. Then we're only going to be allowing principal allowed to delegate to the server specifically. So we're going to grab that and have that execute. Okay, so here goes the command. We're setting a computer with identity DC01 and the principal allowed to delegate to account. We're setting specifically that computer. Once we have this set, we can query what's happening here, by the way. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a challenge with network. Okay, great. Once we have this set, we can query using the gets AD object, and we can actually filter. Specifically, we'll be filtering for MSDS. Let me see if I can tap this. No. Allowed to act on behalf. I can't even filter this. It's strange. Okay. On behalf, I don't want to type wrong, of acting on behalf of order identity. This is camel case. If it's not correct, I'm going to run an error like so. Passing the wildcat there, then we close this up. Great, and we can see that the DC01 appears there with also the grid set in this context. So what we've just done is we've allowed resource-based constraint delegation from the domain controller to the server. We can as well just had verified that that configuration is done correctly. Now that would be like our first tick off the list of things we have to do. If I can go back here, we just dealt with the first one. We detect Kerberos configuration anomalies. Then we're also able to correct that using resource-based constraint delegation, which obviously would be a better way to go in this context. Next, we'll be looking at configuring alternative computer names, and let's get into that. Probably might verify how long we have been on. 17 minutes. Okay, so we're going to be doing this on our server. We're going to pop up an elevated PowerShell here. Okay, great. So on our PowerShell, we'll just do some quick verification. Let's see what we have in place. So first, we'll do a net DOM. I hope this is installed. It should be pretty much, that's how it should be in there. The net DOM computer name. Then we'll pass add. Now what we're doing basically is we're trying to, that's what color. We're trying to add a secondary DNS name to this server using netdom. So the computer name we're adding, let's use data.secure lab. That's the domain. So we're renaming this as data, or secondary DNS name called data. Okay, that ran successfully. We can see the output of that command. Now we'll do an IP config, and then we'll do like a register DNS or register NS just to see the name servers register. My bad. Clear the screen. Verify. Okay, that was my bad. Just wrong spelling. REGISTER name service. What's happening here? IP config. Okay, then we pass REGISTERNS. Okay, I'm not sure why this is not running on this server. I'm going to do a bit of verification. Okay, my bad. I see it's register DNS here. I was just using name service. It's just gonna pass. Okay, that should be good. So we'll register the DNS and the registration of the resource. Okay, any error? Okay, great. So I think that worked out successfully. Now what we're going to do is to verify if this works. We're going to reboot this server. Then we're going to re-authenticate into the server and do some verification. So I'm just going to do a reboot on this server. And whilst that is going on, I will pause the recording. Okay, so our reboot is done. We're going to start the PowerShell again as administrator. Then we'll just run some quick commands to verify if everything looks good based on what we've done. Sure, it's still taking its time to load. Probably that's going to slow down a bit. Uh, okay, great. So let's do the first one. Let's see if we can list the directory data dots. Oh man, just let me be for once. Okay, data dot secure the lab. So we want to see if we can actually see what's on this C dollar, and we can list the content in C dollar. Now we're going to try this using the old name again. Remember, we renamed this from server 01 to data. So let's try the old name srv01 and see if this is going to list. Again, we can still list. So it means we have a secondary name called data secure lab. One final thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our domain controller and verify if this name had been picked up by the domain controller. So I will close this and all these guys. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll clear this screen first and I'll just run this guy. So we would verify on our server. We have server 01. We can still see it's server 01 here. And oh, that's what calling me. Okay, so we on our server 01, we double click on this. We should be able to see attribute editor, and we look for MSDC. I'm just going to scroll down so we can see that secondary attribute. Okay, great. So we can see here MSDS additional DNS name is data at secure lab. We can also verify that this is done correctly. So it means we have a secondary name for this. Now, why would you want to rename something like this? Just pretty much having an alternative name, which would see how this can actually help us better improve security. And the next one, which would be the enabling IP service print, or the SPN, using the SPN in this context, see how that can help us improve security as well. Let's get on to the third one, which is going to be enabling the IP service principal name. Great, this video is already 22 minutes. Okay, so to set the IPSPN, we're going to be using GPO, and then we'll just use a partial command. The partial command basically will help us set the IPSPN feature through GPO. Basically, it's going to be the set GP registry value, which we're using here. I think I already have that command here. And if you look at it, we're setting GP registry value for the name Windows Security Baseline. If you remember the previous video, we had this GPO created, and also we have the key, which is the Kerberos parameters here. Then we're setting the value name try IPSPN. Then we're setting a type D word, and also the value 1, which is actually true in that context. I'm going to copy this and run that on my elevated PowerShell. Okay, great, that ran successfully. And if you don't have this, you would run into errors. For the previous video, I'd shown how to create this. So if you don't have this, please watch the previous video. You would see how to create this GPO. So when you get to this stage, you won't run into problems. Great, now that we have this done, next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the host SPN for the IP address of the domain controller. So we'll use this command. Again, you can verify the IP address ipconfig in your case. In my case, the IP address is set as 10.10.10.10. So I'm just going to grab this command, add in the host SPN for the DC, and I'm going to run that here. Oh, my bad. Oh, man. I need to restart these servers, I guess. It's beginning to act like it's crazy. Okay, I hope copy worked this time. Great. The second time is a charm. Now we'll set the value. So for us to do a bit of enforcing this change, First, we'll do GPU updates, but we'll be setting the targets for the computer lists. Then we'll now do a bit of verification using the K lists and seeing how that works. So first, we would push this change. Again, we have made changes to our GPO, which is the Windows Security Baseline. That's why we're running the GPU updates and we're targeting, setting a target for that. What happened? Updates multiple group policies. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna have to type this manually and see if that's gonna get me past. Clear this. Okay, GPU updates is present, so we're going to pass a target. Not sure what's happening there. Great. So we're updating, pushing out updates. Once that is done, we're going to run the K list to get the CIFS for the domain controller, which IP is 10, 10, 10, 10. So let's do K lists. Then we'll get CIFS for 10.10.10.10. Failed. Error calling the API. Let's see. Did we make a mistake? Okay, I'm going to just pause this and sort this out. Okay, my bad. I think I made, not sure what happened. Klist gets CIFS. It's still failing. Okay, so I'm having troubles running Klist. I'm not sure what's happening to the API. It seems like it's just failing. I just ran the normal Klist command just to verify that I can already see that I have some cache tickets. Again, if I reboot this machine, I'm sure most of this will be cleared off already, but you can see most of the changes we've made being reflected here as well, showing right there. Okay, so that will be for this particular one. The final one which we're going to touch will be the fourth one. I'm hoping that this video doesn't stay too long. Deploying additional Kerberos hardening. So for this, what we'll do is would be using the GPO with group policy object to make changes. First, we'll enable strong certificate binding for Kerberos, PKINIT, I think that's what it's called, on domain controller. And then we would add following some policies pretty much under the GPO, which we have, which is the security baseline GPO. We'll add some policies to that just to tighten things up. Okay, let's get into that final. Okay, so for the first task, like I did mention, what we want to do is we're going to enable strong certificate binding, and we'll be using PowerShell for this. So we're targeting the domain controller security baseline. If you remember, we have that GPO created. Let's just go to our GPO. I'm going to close this. Great. So we have the domain controller, default domain controller. This is the default one. Then we created this one for hardening on the previous video. Again, if you've not been following, I would recommend you watch those previous videos so you can actually see how these were created. So but from our PowerShell command, what we're doing is we're setting a new GPO with the domain controller security baseline here. Then if you look at the GPUs we already have here, we don't have security baseline for domain controller, so we're creating this domain controller security baseline. Then with the key set here, then the value strong certificate binding, then we're setting the D word value as 2. We're going to grab this PowerShell command and we're going to paste this here. Okay, GPU that is named. Okay, we don't have that name, so I'm going to have to set this to the name that we have, which we already have in our domain controller protocol hardening. So it's going to be this one. Let's make that changes. Domain controller. Okay, so that was a name challenge. We fixed the name. Again, the name should be domain controller protocol hardening, which is the GPU that we have already in here. Then we ran that command and we're able to set the value for strong certificate binding with a D word value of 2. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add some extended policies to this particular GPU which we have here. So if I double click on that, or I can just right click on it and edit this GPU. So we're going to go under the policies and then add some policies. So we're going to computer configuration policies. We'll be going for Windows settings. Then under Windows settings, we should have security. First, I think we should deal with first, let's see if we can deal with administrative templates. We can actually find most of those under administrative templates. Then under administrative templates system. Oh man, this is a lot now. So I'm going to drag this up a bit so I can have good visibility. Oh man. Okay, so sorry about this. So KDC, there we go. So great. Now we have KDC support for claim, compound authentication, and Kerberos armoring. This is actually something really cool in conjunction with the fast. We also have the PK INT freshness extension. What we're going to do is we're going to update some policies. First, we'll do the KDC support for claim compound. We'll enable this policy. Now you would find good detail on what this policy and how this will impact your environment. So once again, I always recommend you test this on the lower environment to be sure that you're not breaking stuff by enabling this policy. Once we have that enabled, then we will also enable for the PK freshness. Once again, read what it's doing before enabling it. Then we'll do for the supports. We'll also do for the request compound authentication. Okay, so we have all these enabled. Now that we have this enabled, just give me a second. I'm going to do one verification here. Okay, we can actually use only supported, always provide claim, or fail armor authentication requests. Now we've got these options. I just wanted to touch on it. So we probably didn't bypass that. I'm using supported in this context on all that I'm creating or all the changes I'm making. But you can actually reflect on what's particular option you want to select there, either required, or if it's supported, fine. If it's not supported, don't break stuff. Basically, that's what I would choose to do actually in this context. Okay, so then we're also going to set some network policies for the DNS. We made some changes. Then also network provider settings, as well as the system Kerberos settings as well. So let's start with the network first. We will the administrative templates. If I can just drag this thing by the side, it sucks. Okay. All right. So we're going to look for network. On the network, we would look for DNS clients. Then under DNS clients, we're going to see if we can maybe make one or two changes to some of the policies here to reflect on what we've done earlier. Okay, so for the changes which we'll be making them under the Kerberos, and then we'll be setting always send compound authentication first as the first option, or the fourth option we want to use, then fail back to something else. We'll also be doing Kerberos clients for the claims, which is compound, then authentication, and Kerberos armoring, basically the fast concept. Then we're also going to require strict KDC validation. We want to be sure validation is done in place. Then also we're going to require strict target SPNs. We also had set that earlier to match on remotes. Then also the procedural calls as well. Then support compound authentication configuration for the procedural calls. So it means we're not just using compound authentication for our normal Kerberos, also for ROPC, we are using compound authentication. So first we'll go with always compound authentication first. We will enable this. Again, I must warn, this can actually break stuff. Be sure you have this tested completely end to end on a lower environment. Then we'll do Kerberos client for the claims. We'll enable this guy. Then we're also going to do the authentication for Kerberos Armoring, requiring strict. So we'll find the requirement to require strict SSL. That one require strict KDC validation. Okay, we're going to enable this guy. Then we're also going to do a few more, maybe like let's see, we can actually, we've done the require strict KDC. We're also going to do the require, I think I mentioned the strict target SPN. Let's see that one. This one here. We'll enable this guy. Then finally, we're going to do the support compound authentication. So we dealt with the RPC one and support compound authentication. So once we have all this done, we would need to do a GP update. Then we'll just reboot the machine and see all those changes coming into action. So first I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to go right here and just fetch that update. Okay, I don't have to do this anyways, but just if you had watched the previous videos, I already had linked it, so I didn't have to link it again. I can just do GP updates. Then I pass like a false flag so that it's going to fetch everything. Then after that, I'll just reboot the machine. Then I'll do a quick verification running the klist command. Earlier when we ran the klist commands, you saw the cache credentials. This time around we'll run it and we'll be looking specifically for the flag which tells us that we've set delegation past a compound. So I'm going to reboot this machine. There's a whole lot going on the machine, but I'm just going to reboot it. Then once it's back, I'll come back to you guys. Okay, so we're logging back into the machine just to verify that everything is okay. Then we'll run our klist command to verify what the new output looks like. So I'm just going to grab CMD here. And we'll run our klist. Great. So we'll do a bit of verification here. Primary fast. We can also see the flag set there. Again, this is important to verify that the configuration that we had done actually reflects on what the output here for the cache ticket is. Threat actor maybe grabbing any of these tickets pretty much is rendered useless because they won't be able to do anything meaningful with this ticket because we just enabled a bit of security or another layer of security on what a normal ticket would look like. I can as well run this on a PowerShell just to verify. Again, it doesn't have to be CMD. I can do this on, this is my DC one, my bad. That was really bad. That was actually on my, that was something done on my, on the server. I thought I was on the domain controller. Okay, but that was this other server. Okay, great. We can as well see that verified here. The cache flag is primary fast. So it means this is good to go. Well, this is where I'm going to call a shot for this recording. I'm looking forward to the next one where I'll be doing some more content around still around security, but this time around we'll go into some concepts of zero trust and see how we can delve into that ideology pretty much from a Windows perspective, and how we can tighten things up around RPC using some like RPC firewall, then also doing a bit of DC sync to set up to block DC sync kind of attack. Then also we'll be doing a bit of still the fast concepts, but more around the DC sync specification. Well, thanks for your patience and your time. I hope you love the content. I'll see you in the next recording, and have a good day. Bye.